we are already in April, and things are busy. We know that you guys are busy. We've just gotten through the spring break kind of phase. I know here in Nebraska, we have a lot of testing going on this week. So that's busy. And then May is right around the corner. So the school year it seems that it just got started, and we're kind of looking at the end here. So I am very thankful for everybody that's joined today. And again, welcome. I would like to introduce our speakers or our guests today. We have with us Miss Jennifer and then Miss Susan. So guys, if you don't mind, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves, tell us who you are and what you guys do here for Boys Town.
Okay,
I can go ahead, Susan. Go ahead and start.
Well, good morning or afternoon, depending on which time zone you're in. My name is Susan Lamkem. I'm the Director of National Training here at Boys Town. And what we do in this department is we disseminate the programs we use in our own programs out to schools and agencies across the country. So that is why we are in the realm of professional learning and professional development, because we provide a lot of that from coast to coast. So I've been around Boys Town for a couple of decades now, and have been in this department in a variety of capacities. So I've had the opportunity to provide that professional development and the follow-up consultation, again, from coast to coast. So super excited to talk with you about the topic today. And also, being a former teacher, I know what it's like receiving that professional development. So hopefully we can take a look at some of those vantage points. Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, good to see everybody today. As Timothy and Susan mentioned, I'm Jennifer Buth. I am the Program Replication Manager with Boys Town National Training. And essentially, my function is to oversee the dissemination of our evidence-based and research-based programs, and make sure that we are presenting them in a way that people can implement them with fidelity. So that's my current role and position. My background in education is about 27 years long. I've taught at the elementary, middle, and high school level, mostly in the area of English and language. And I spent about 5 or 6 years as a building level administrator, and I'm currently completing my doctorate in teacher learning and teacher education, which seems pretty appropriate for this topic today.
Yeah, this will be good. You can hopefully maybe use this for credits. So we'll see about that. But awesome. So I do want to jump in, but I do have to point out, you know, my trees are green screen and yours aren't, Jen. So you look to be in a slightly warmer climate than I'm in, and so that's awesome. I am very thankful for technology. Jen is enjoying beautiful Mexico at the moment, and so we're very thankful for you taking time out of your vacation to spend with us. And again, that just goes to show we are very passionate about this this topic, and so we're going to jump right into it. Today, we are going to be speaking for the next 20-25 minutes. We're going to listen to Jen and Susan kind of break down the topic of using professional learning to empower your learning communities. And so as they both kind of spoke to, their background really allows them to speak with confidence on this. So I would like to toss the first question to you, Jen. But right before I do, let me mention the chat box, please. If you're listening today and you're listening to Jen and Susan as they speak, please utilize the chat. Maybe introduce yourselves if you want to say hi. But if you have a question, if you disagree, or you say, hey, this is how I do something, put it in the chat. We'd love to get to your questions and your comments. So with that being said, again, the first question to you, Jen, what is the main purpose of professional development for educators?
Excellent question. You know, I think professional development serves a multitude of purposes. But when I think about it personally, I think about it as being a vehicle to equip me as a professional and also empower me to do my job better. So I think if you think about us as educators, you know, we got into this profession not only because we wanted to teach others, but because hopefully we're lifelong learners ourselves. And so just craving that information and utilizing that as a means for just maximizing our efficiency and effectiveness. I know that Susan would agree with this, and I can definitely attest that we've all been through our share of, you know, mandated or ineffective professional development. And while we can usually walk away from these experiences with, a variety of tools, it's kind of like the workbench in my garage, right? It's cluttered, it's deorganized, and it contains a lot of items that I don't necessarily need and might not necessarily use on a regular basis. So I think if we look at the benefits of really professional learning and development that's carefully identified and planned and well executed, those opportunities should be affirming. They should validate us very much in what we already do, but then provide us with fresh and practical and applicable ideas for what we would like to do in the future. We know, especially following the pandemic, that our educational landscape can change significantly at any moment. And so to be able to seek out professional development as a source of just pedagogical growth, and a way to help us, help our students achieve our academic, social, and behavioral objectives that we set for them, and to help us prepare for the unexpected, because we don't know kind of when that's going to change. The pendulum tends to swing very slowly in education, but it can also move very abruptly also. So we always have to be prepared for the unexpected. In addition to just being effective teachers, I think also, good professional learning gives us strategies to establish and maintain healthy school environments, build relationships with students, reduce disruptive behaviors, and just really just maintain that culture and climate that will help us truly meet the individual needs of our students, because they're so varied.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. Susan, anything you want to add to that on the
No,
purpose of professional development?
no, I think Jen covered it well,
Yeah.
and I love the analogy of the tool bench in your garage.
Yeah, don't look at mine.
Don't look in my garage. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. And so again, I mean, obviously, professional development is out there. We want to use it, right? And again, being lifelong learners, as a lot of our educators are, we see the importance of it. But sometimes there's obviously obstacles and things that get in that way of ongoing learning. Susan, why don't you speak to that real quick on some of the barriers to the new and ongoing learning that really we have to do because it's part of our job. But what are some of the obstacles?
Definitely. I think the biggest one is time. Who has time? When do we have time? Educators have very, very, very full plates, and there's a lot going on. And right now, there's also staff shortages, so there's even more going on. But there's academic planning and communicating with students and parents and colleagues and administrators. And there's just a lot to do in a day. And while doing all of those things, building good, healthy relationships while you're at it, so that that dialogue goes well and that communication is good. And then we grade and we create lessons and those types of things. So there's a really, really full plate for both the teachers in the classroom as well as the administrators managing buildings and those folks managing districts. So time is probably the biggest factor. We know from working with districts and schools across the country that professional development days are also small in number. There's a couple of days maybe when as the year ends. Sometimes there's a few as the year begins, while we're getting back to school and setting up classrooms and all those kinds of things. So there's just a lot of competing priorities for folks. And then the other competing priority that can happen, hopefully not every year, but some years, is you get several new initiatives rolling out at the same time. And so we've got, maybe a new math curriculum, and we've got some different reading strategies, and now we've got a behavior program that we're going to do to support that social emotional learning. And so now I have 3 new initiatives to learn. And where does all of that fall into place? So there's a lot of that going on. So I think it's just the time to learn, to digest, and to figure out where all those pieces go. And still, continue to educate the kiddos in your classroom and to do that job. So, and sometimes too, the main barrier to learning something new isn't necessarily even the time or the intellectual component of, do I have time to absorb and process all of this? But sometimes too, for folks, it can just be emotional. It can just be a simple resistance to change. Maybe I'm new to this, or I've been doing this for a while, or whatever the case may be. But what I'm doing seems to be working for me in any of those realms in my space and place. And so it's sometimes hard to, absorb or digest. Why do I have to do something new, or why do I have to make that change when what I'm doing is working? Um, and so sometimes it's just helping folks to realize, even though things are going well in your space and place, it's oftentimes beneficial to our kiddos when things are going the same way throughout the building, throughout the district. So it creates that predictability and consistency for kids. So sometimes it's just navigating that change and that change process. So time and just navigating the change. Jen, anything to add?
No, I absolutely concur with you. Carving out the time is one thing, but then um, be able to integrate that new learning right away so that we don't lose it.
Right.
Being able to integrate it and make it practical regardless of what setting we're in, I think is really, really important, but that's often a barrier.
Right.
That we are excited when we learn something new and we get back from a workshop and we feel like, I really want to implement all these things, but that workbook goes on our shelf, or the files get stored in our computer, and we
Right.
go back to business as usual. So I think just a barrier is change is hard.
It is.
Yep.
Mhm.
No, that's very good. And so, while you were talking, Susan, I was thinking, so this is nothing that we talked about in the past. So I'm just going to throw this at you, Jen. But, looking back at I think you said 27 years in education, right? How did you, and you can be honest, a lot of times you don't always go into professional learning or PD days with a smile on your face, right? Like sometimes it can be a chore. By sometimes it's probably a lot of times. Over 27 years, how do you mentally just say, hey, this is, something I need or something I'm going to go into? Again, can you kind of speak that to on a personal level? Like, how did you face PD over 27 years in education?
Susan touched on this a little bit, just that there's so many initiatives often in place and they come and go so quickly. So I think you have to be able to compartmentalize, and really, much like I use the analogy of the tool bench in my garage, I take the few tools that I know that I can use and will use frequently, and I put those in the drawer in the kitchen, right? I put those in a place where I can grab them on a moment's notice, that they're the ones I'm going to use most frequently. And then I still have the larger bench sitting outside that I can draw from when and if I need it or the opportunity arises. But I keep the ones that are most important. And sometimes I switch those out, right? So sometimes I know that the ones in my kitchen drawer, I don't need anymore. So I instead put those away and I grab a new set. But we have to compartmentalize, and we just have to keep things small and focus on the things that are most practical for the situation that we're in.
I love that. That's great. I did put a question in the chat, and I'd be interested to hear from some of our listeners what some additional barriers that you face in your space and place when it comes to professional learning. But Jen, your analogy is growing from my workbench to now my junk drawer, and I'm feeling kind of attacked here. So we're gonna move on. But what is the best way? And again, back to you, Jen. But what is the best way learning communities can go about developing their members professionally?
Well, I think as individuals, we all do learn in different ways and have different preferences for our learning. But I think professional learning as a whole kind of operates on a trajectory, if you will, or a continuum. And we can fall anywhere within this trajectory or continuum depending on the initiative. But it goes all the way from viewing something as, impossible. I can't do this. I don't have the time. I don't have the space or the place. This isn't going to work for me in my situation. And over time, we graduate to the probable. Could I use a little bit of this? Maybe so. And then moving on to the plausible or possible. Like, okay, I see some merit in this. And then finally, we arrive at what's preferable. Like, I've had the time to think about it, to play with it, to absorb it, to try it out and experience a little bit of success. And now I realize the merit in it. And so I think the biggest way learning communities can go about developing our members professionally is to provide the time for people to move through those phases at their own pace, and to not be too quick to abandon an initiative when we don't see results as immediately as we like, because sometimes good change takes a while. Lasting change takes a while. So it's good to align ourselves with certain specific theories or frameworks, but we can't see those as endpoints. It's not just to say we do MTSS or we do PBIS. It's realizing that those are more of a jumping off point, not an endpoint. Because as educators, those are just frameworks, and then we need the practical strategies that fit within those frameworks. And that's something I really appreciated working at Boys Town, is that the strategies that are taught within our Boys Town model kind of fills in the gaps. It takes any framework and provides the strategies that you'll actually use to like prevent situations from escalating, to reinforce students, to correct behaviors when they occur, to establish routines and procedures, and also to teach kids needed academic and social skills. So, and those kinds of strategies can fit with whichever framework you are operating in. So I think that is really important to think about. And I think you can also think about professional learning in a variety of ways, because it's not only just planning and executing professional learning opportunities, but making sure that we're providing necessary instruction and modeling, that we're giving our educators time to explore on their own, that we're giving them time to collaborate and receive individualized coaching and constructive feedback. And then finally, tying all of that into evaluation, to program evaluation at a higher level. And so I think you can look at those all individually, really.
Yeah, you said a couple things in there that I just want to draw out, because on these webinars, obviously we have everyone from, educators to, admin level. And I think it's important, when you started off that answer by pointing out that we all learn differently. And, we understand that as the kids in our classroom, right? We know that they all learn differently, but sometimes I think as administrators, we forget that our teachers, our educators, they also learn differently. And so, when you're looking at professional development for your educators, it's important to look at a concept that hits all of the learning styles. Again, whether that's, material, some people like to print things out and to read it and make notes and mark on things. I'm looking at you, Susan, and Jen. And some people are like, hey, let me just sit down, on my couch with a glass of wine and let me watch some professional development videos. And so there's having a variety of that learning and that training is important when you're looking at PD. So you pointed that out, or you mentioned that, and I just wanted to focus on that a little bit, because it's just because we're adults doesn't mean that we stop learning in our own unique way. So thank you. So kind of diving more into that again, as we break down our professional development, you mentioned getting prepared. How do we prepare for professional development, Susan?
There's a variety of ways, and it's been interesting. Like I said, I've been doing this quite a while and a couple of decades. And so it's been interesting to watch the evolution of what has occurred in education, as well as how we've met those needs. So I think it's really important before you start any professional development on any topic is to really get prepared. And so one of the things that we're really cognizant about doing is just kind of assessing what districts or schools are wanting or needing. So conducting some sort of analysis or needs assessment, whether that's through formal observation or questionnaires or just through a conversation. And we really have our team just visit with folks about, you know, tell us about your community. Tell us about the families that your school is serving. Let's talk about your students and what kinds of things are they experiencing success with and what things are they struggling with. And then your staff. So we can really get kind of lay of the land and understand the community and the students and the families that school serves. And then we want to take a look at the school as a whole and really look at, what's going well for you and what are your pain points. Oftentimes when schools reach out to us or we connect with one another, they're looking for something specific. Like we might need a program to help to decrease our referrals or negative behaviors or suspensions, or frankly we are doing pretty well, we just want to capitalize on that and increase our school climate or um, increase attendance, teacher satisfaction, those kinds of things, graduation rate. So I think it's always important to go in and identify, who might we be partnering with for this professional development. What is the lay of their land and what solution can we help them with, because they reach out because they're looking for that type of a solution. So if we can help solve a problem, that's fantastic. And so just getting some of that baseline information, even taking a look at some of the data, referral data, attendance data, those types of things, and saying, okay, you reached out because you want to solve this problem. Here are the services we have. We have a variety of services from universal interventions to tertiary interventions. So what services do we have that can meet your needs? Would that be better face-to-face or virtually or an online solution? And then we'll talk a little bit more here later about consultation. But so what do you want to solve? What do we have that we can help you with to do that? And then let's identify where you are and where you want to go so we can have those really measurable outcomes and measurable goals. So we really want to just lay that out so we're all working towards the same thing. And then I think that translates really well then when administrators turn to staff and say, hey, we're bringing in this new initiative or we're bringing in this new program, or sometimes it's even we're bringing back this program to work on these goals, and here's why. We worked with districts who've done, they create, 80% or more teacher buy-in, or they do a survey and say, yes, this is what we want. They're never going to get 100%. And then we worked in districts where they just brought someone in, and you really see the difference in the outcomes based on just really preparing for that and explaining, we're bringing this program in, here's why, here's what we're trying to solve, and here's how we're going to do it together. And then really just being partners in this journey.
Yeah, and that's I really do appreciate that. It's so important to, and again, I as adults, a lot of times we don't like being told or walking in and just being told, hey, this is what we're doing. So remembering that, the individuals that stand in the front of the class and teach your students all day are your partners. And so helping them to prepare and get mentally on board is huge. So thank you for bringing that up. And then, I want to point out as well, keep your eye on the chat if you're following along. Jackson, who you don't see, is kind of our technical guy in the background. And so Jackson's thrown in a couple links, and as we talk, he might continue to do that. So, keep an eye on that and feel free to check out any of the information that Jackson throws in. Thank you for doing that, Jackson. So we've prepared, we've partnered with our educators. Talk to me a little bit about the training, Jen, and kind of go into that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just as Susan said, laying that foundation and building that foundation for professional learning is so important. But then once that foundation is built, we can go about actually providing those professional learning opportunities in so many different ways, and that's going to largely depend on the initiative that we're trying to implement, but also the structure of our school or educational program. The setting or environment that we're in and what we're trying to accomplish, whether that's short-term goals or long-term goals. So, you can certainly look at things like what kinds of information can we provide? maybe in print or online, that teachers can explore on their own to get a real understanding of why are we learning this? Why here? Why now? What it's going to help us accomplish. Um, it, just because we're older doesn't mean we have a larger capacity to absorb information. So just as our kids have a pretty short attention span, an adult needs often to be exposed to information in smaller chunks. Now, if it's something we're really excited about and really want to learn about, we probably have, can pay attention and have a less limited capacity. But otherwise, providing things in more 6 to 20-minute chunks of information just often makes it a lot more palatable. And so having a trainer who can break things down, present information in small chunks, engage learners through multiple touch points over time versus a sit and get, one thing we're working on at Boys Town, which I'm super excited about, is our Lift with Boys Town education site. This will be a website that is going to provide professional learners and educators with access to a number of different informational sources and services. Everything from materials to on-demand training to instructor-led and virtual sessions. So some of that will be self-paced, some of that will be live, but it will provide folks with access to continuous real-time support. Super excited about that. So look for that in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, that is awesome. So when we were coming up with this topic and this conversation, we all stressed we did not want this to be a necessarily a sales pitch for Boys Town or for our products. However, we have been doing this for 100 years. And so it's hard not to say, hey, we believe in what we do here at Boys Town, and not just Boys Town Omaha, Boys Town nationwide, at all of our sites, at all of our locations, and at a lot of your schools that from where you're attending. So we are excited. Somebody said, yeah, can't wait for the new site. If you click on the link that Jackson sent in the chat, you'll be taken to our very beautiful, archaic Boys Town site that you're familiar with or that you've seen. And when we go live with this new site, it'll be beautiful, easy to navigate. So we're very excited about that. Jen and Susan have been absolute just rock stars in developing and content. So yes, be on the lookout for that. And we'll send you more information as that time comes. So again, we're breaking down kind of what that training and how to go about that. We talked about preparation. We've talked about the actual training and what to kind of look for. Training happens, the trainer leaves. Talk to me, Susan. What can we do after the fact to help make sure that some of these tools are being used?
That's a really good question. So we learned long ago that train and hope is not a good method. If we just go in and out, we train and we leave, then people will do probably not much with it at all because of all of those competing factors. So regardless of how people receive the training, whether it's live virtually or somebody on site, or they go through it self-paced, or they read about it, people can absorb that information, but we know that then people need support. It's when you learn any new skill, when you're learning any new thing, that support along the way will help to encourage, will let you make mistakes, get some coaching around how to make it better, stronger, faster, those kinds of things. So we know that it takes educators and anybody with new learning just time to learn those kinds of things. So what we do often is we'll go back to schools that we've worked with, and we can provide that consultation both virtually and on site. And in a number of ways, we can do direct observations, we can do surveys, we can do focus groups, go back and look at the data that's collected. So when we're on site, we go into classrooms, we observe common areas, we take some we collect data on the strategies that we teach in our various trainings. Our first self-paced product will be Well-Managed Schools, which is an awesome universal intervention that can be used K through 12. And so what we do is we go in, we look for the strategies that we talked about. in common areas, in classrooms across the school. And then we'll just do some coaching. Here's what you're doing well. Here's what you could do better. Sometimes people say, I don't know what to do now. It's like, well, let's try this. We all know with human behavior, it's trial and error. What worked yesterday might not work today. So again, it's that journey together. And so we're able to then watch the progress for the school or for the district along the way. Here's where you started. Here's what we've taught or you've learned or absorbed in whichever manner is best for you. Then we come back and consult, look at that data and see where we are. Are we getting closer to our goal? Is there something we need to go back and review? And then again, you have that variety of training that you can go back and review and practice those types of things. And then sometimes when we have a long relationship with schools, we'll actually choose a small group, a select group of staff within a school or a district and train them to use those consultative tools so that they can do that consultation and provide that ongoing support in our absence, and eventually just be self-sustaining. They can just reach out to us for help and some maintenance stuff along the way, but otherwise they're good to go. So that's where we really like to do that coaching and consultation.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's good news also if you're an administrator on this call and you're thinking about professional development for your educators. Boys Town isn't again, obviously we have a product and we're proud of our product, but the goal is to make lasting change, and part of that lasting change is to get those teachers to a level where they are not just implementing, but where they're able to basically be that coach and trainer at your own district and at that level. And so that's kind of that's awesome. So thank you. And then lastly, again, kind of going through the steps, we prepared, we did the training. Afterwards, we did the coaching and consultation. Jen, talk to me a little bit about evaluation and kind of what that looks like at the district level.
Yeah, so evaluation is a word that is somewhat scary to us as educators, right? Because we think about it in a very different way. But really, evaluation is just, it still is a very critical component for lasting implementation. Because when we're implementing a new initiative, it takes money, it takes time, it takes physical and human resources. And that's not something we want to or are able to generate over and over and over again. So when we do choose an initiative, we want to invest in that as best as possible. And evaluation remains a big component of that. So it's about building level and district level administrators being able to align these initiatives with other things that are going on, and to be able to monitor that regularly. To provide direction. Why are we doing it? How long are we expecting to do it? What should it look like if we know we're meeting our goals? Providing that ongoing encouragement, and then sustainable resources long-term, fiscal and physical resources long-term, knowing that if there is technology or equipment or people that need to be included in a particular initiative, that we're able to provide that down the road. And then I think also just creating those feedback loops for members of the learning organization at all levels to be able to provide constructive, helpful feedback and realize that we're all in this together.
Yep, I love it. Awesome, thank you. So again, we're kind of coming to an end of our talk, but I always like to, get a little personal. What I'd like for you guys to do, and again, we didn't talk about this, and I did it on purpose, but Susan and Jen, taking your Boys Town hat off, taking your doctorate hat off, soon to be Jen, talk to me again as an educator, what is the ROI for you of professional learning? Why go into it with a good attitude, or what can I take out of it? I mean, why? What do you get out of it?
That's really hard to sum up in a few sentences, Timothy.
It is.
That's a terrific question.
It is.
For me, it's personal satisfaction. For me, it's a stress reliever. I mean, the jobs that we do are important, but they can also be very, very stressful. And so having the ability or opportunity to draw from a variety of resources and tools helps me to feel just better equipped and confident to do my job. And that in turn reduces my stress level as an educator.
Yeah, because sometimes, yeah, and thank you. And that was a good answer. So thank you for letting me throw it at you. But, so it can be, if I understand you correctly, it's like almost a reminder that, hey, I can do this and I am good at this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I haven't done anything for 27 years, let alone education, but for 27 years, that's a long time. But sometimes it's a reminder that, hey, you know what? I got into this because I love this field. And sometimes it's a reminder that I'm good at this. This is, I'm good at this job. And a
It's
lot of times,
rejuvenating.
yeah, absolutely. And educators get into it. I don't know any educator that got into the education field because they didn't like kids or, right? Like we get into it because this is what we want to do. And then a lot of times we get out of it because we get tired, we get worn down. The constant everyday, man, I just want to educate, but now I've got to deal with this and deal with this. And then of course, technology, which was supposed to be our friend, is just another level now that we have to maintain and be on top of. And it's absolutely insane. So I love that answer because that's a good way to look at it too. Like, hey, I'm going to go into this and it's a reminder to myself that I'm not alone. I have these tools and resources and also I'm good at my job. And so that's awesome. Thank you. Susan, anything that you want to add to that?
The only thing I would add is, just thinking back to classroom days, is when you're in the classroom, you're on your own island. And so that professional development is that opportunity to do new learning, to be able to collaborate, to work with your team, to network, to bounce ideas off each other. And so it's just that nice, like Jen said, the word rejuvenating. It's that professional kind of whoosh, because sometimes you're doing that day to day and you might not always feel like a professional. You're just, you're just going through the motions and getting kids what they need. And, sometimes teachers aren't treated as professionals. And so I think that professionalism, that time to get to network and do their own learning, because being in the business a long time, they're lifelong learners. And so just having the opportunity to get to absorb some instead of give isn't just really rejuvenating.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And go ahead, Jen.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. So
yeah. Thank you. And again, I know we prepare, but I wanted to throw that question at you guys, and those were both very real answers. So I appreciate that. Again, I want to wrap things up. Here at Boys Town, and probably your goal as well as you're watching, but the ultimate goal of professional learning is sustainability. I know that there are 1,000 resources that you could look at. But if you would like more information about the Boys Town model, the programs or the services that our national training can provide, please reach out. We would love to, talk, partner, whatever we can do for you. And Boys Town is here for you. So again, take advantage of the resources that Jackson threw into the chat. We also have our press, which I believe was mentioned briefly earlier in the conversation. But our press that is constantly putting out up to date, what's happening in our environment right now, information and booklets and full on books. So take a look at that, and also be on the lookout as we close out this webinar. You will be getting an email with some links and a landing page there that you can get some of those resources. And of course, please reach out if there's anything we can do for you guys. So I do thank you for all the attendees that were on. Thank you so much. Susan, Jen, thank you guys for your time. And Jen, especially, thank you for taking time out of your vacation. Tell your family thank you for letting us borrow you. And guys, thank you so much.